这个在第4节中这个哈德森教授会讨论石油怎么成了美元帝国的钥匙。我们把这个话呢叫做石油是美元锚就是船呢要有一个锚嘛，你才能在江河湖海之中保证你这个船不乱飘。所以我们说我们原来多少年讨论就是石油是美元的锚，粮食也是美元的锚。当美元完全放弃以黄金作为美元发行依据的时候，美元的之所以能够变成世界货币，能够被世界各国来作为结算货币，那作为结算货币当然也就作为储备货币，主要原因是石油和粮食这2大类关系到你的发展和关系到你的生存，这2大类是你离不开的，那你只能用美元结算这一点呢，我觉得这个他在这里边做了一个解释。那石油业与采矿业是最具掠夺性的，因为它都是地下的资源，你只要占有权利，你就能够直接开采地下的资源，产生你的收益。所有应计利润都是为了支撑美元，也就是说，你掠夺性的侵占性的获取了这些资源，那把这些资源转化成可交易的商品，所获的利润都是支撑这个作为结算货币的美元的。这跟我们所说的锚是一样的，就是锚定在这些交易上。
Control of oil has always been a key element of U.S. foreign policy because it's so enormously profitable. It's the main source of natural resource rent, and it's basically tax exempt. And so countries that have oil are almost always attacked. It's called the curse of oil. You're attacked by America or England or France, and they grab the oil and they kill your political leaders and they put in their own puppets. And that's essentially what America's done, what America is trying to do right now in Venezuela. It's the alternative is essentially to let oil be in the country itself, and instead of turning the oil profits into the U.S. economy. Now, I could get, there are many technical aspects of and legalistic aspects of oil in the American empire that really have to be looked at as a separate sector. Oil companies in America organize their oil wells and their production facilities in the Near East and elsewhere as branches, not as affiliates. It's not like they own a company that produces oil and pays taxes in these countries. An oil branch or a mining branch, its operations are consolidated into the parent company's balance sheet. So America, Shell Oil or Exxon, a depletion allowance for depleting foreign companies' oil. They don't have to pay any tax. As it happened in 1995, the Vietnam War was creating very heavy balance of payments drain on the United States, threatening the dollar's exchange rate. And so President Johnson, who had just replaced Kennedy, passed foreign investment control, voluntary investment controls. Voluntary means do it or we'll throw you in jail. And Johnson passed a rule saying that no country can increase its foreign investment by more than 5% over what it had the previous year. Well, that got the oil industry very upset, and they said, wait a minute, we're making so much money, we're the main support of the American balance of payments. The oil industry for a century had been dominated by John D. Rockefeller and his successors, and David Rockefeller, his grandson, was head of the Chase Manhattan Bank. So the oil industry went to David Rockefeller and said, can you calculate just how much money we're getting from abroad on our oil so that we can get exempt from all of the rules. So as it happened, I was the balance of payments economist for Chase Manhattan at that time. And David Rockefeller told me, well, we don't want our oil department to write the report because they think that, after all, they're the lobbyists for the oil company, but nobody knows about you. You're independent. we want you just to talk to all the oil companies. They've agreed to give you all of their internal documentation, and you can look at it all and you come up with the report. We think they're making a bonanza, but we don't know. Can you spend a year doing the research and finding out what's happening? So I began my research, and I went to Standard Oil of New Jersey, which was the big Rockefeller company, and I was looking through all the statistics. First of all, I began with the public balance of payment statistics, the Department of Commerce statistics, and I couldn't find any profits at all. I looked for oil profits from the Near Eastern countries. I looked for Europe, Latin America. I couldn't find any profits, and I went to their treasurer and I said, "Where are they?" And the treasurer said, "Oh, you didn't. There's something called, at the very end of this whole column of countries, there's something called international." And I said, "Well, international, isn't that all these countries?" He said, "No, international means countries that aren't really countries. They're Libya, and they're Panama and Lagos. They're countries that don't use foreign exchange currencies of their own. They use the US dollar. And they're where we have the flags of convenience. There are shipping companies." And he said, "What we do is, we don't want to have to pay Saudi Arabia or Iran or other countries much money for the income tax. So we sell the oil at a tiny, tiny little fraction, almost at the production cost, to our trading affiliates in Panama or Liberia or wherever, Liberia. And then the trading companies are in countries, Panama and Liberia don't have an income tax. So there's no income tax. They use the US dollar, so there's no foreign exchange risk. And then they sell this oil at a huge mark, such a high price to the refineries in Europe and North America, or to the final filling stations, that there are no profits to be shown in America. And so all the profits of the worldwide operations, production, refinery, distribution, are all made in these tax-exempt enclaves, Panama. When I looked at, okay, let's look at what the costs are. How much does America have to pay for the oil? Well, they said, for one thing, America only imports oil from its own companies. It won't import oil from other companies. It has to be from American-owned companies. And most of the cost of this producing Near Eastern and other oil, cost never leaves the United States. Most of it is absorbed in the profits that we make and that we declare from Liberia and et cetera, in Panama, or it's from U.S. equipment, the oil machinery that is American-made and that we export to our branches to dig the oil wells, or paid for management fees. And of course, we lend our affiliates money and our branches money, and this is all absorbed in interest that also is paid to the head office through our money lending affiliate. So actually, we only pay about 10 cents for every dollar worth of imported oil. And the 10 cents on the dollar that these countries get, they have to spend it on U.S. arms as part of the defense contract. So America doesn't really pay a penny for the oil that it gets. It's all free, and that's why we really shouldn't have the government limit what we're doing abroad, because we're stripping their assets. We're getting rich off them. So I wrote my report. I would have thought that Arab countries and socialists would have been interested in my report, but Chase Manhattan printed it, put it on the desk of every senator and representative in the United States, went up for a vote, and the oil industry was exempted. So oil is a key to the American empire, and it's a key because it is the most exploitative resource, along with mining, pays no foreign income tax, pays very little production abroad, and all of the profits accrue to the head office supporting the dollar. The year after the Iranian coup d'etat, you had the next democracy to be overthrown was in Guatemala in 1954. 10 years earlier, a revolution had overthrown the dictator and installed a democracy. And the democratic elected president, Jacobo Arbenz, urged land reform. He wanted to give the peasants land of their own. But the United Fruit Company wanted to use the land not to feed Guatemalans, but to make bananas to export to the United States and feed Americans and Europeans. And the Dulles brothers said any country that has land reform is anti-American and is going to go communist. So you have to prevent it. So America had a coup d'etat that brought dictatorship to Guatemala, just as it brought dictatorship under Pérez Jiménez to Venezuela and overthrew the elected Brazilian government and other governments. So essentially, the American empire, claiming to be the free world and democratic, is a string of military dictatorships as allies. And the main, just as it opposes foreign ownership of oil, unless the country agrees to send all the profits, invest in the United States, as Saudi Arabia does, land reform is opposed, not only because the U.S. wants the land for its own plantation agriculture, like United Fruit or other foreign landowners, but it doesn't want countries to grow their own food because a basic element of America's trade surplus, that one of the few areas in surplus, is the farm sector. America's grain exports. So farm exports provide an enormous subsidy of the American empire. And it also, by making other countries dependent on American grain, you can starve them out if they do something you don't like. So in the 1950s, after Mao's revolution in China, America said, let's starve it out. Let's have a sanction. No country can export grain to China. We've got to starve them. Well, as you know, Canada broke the embargo and did export grain to China. But the United States has been able to convince most countries to rely on U.S. grain and other essentials, so that America wants the ability to create havoc in other countries if they don't do what U.S. officials tell them to do. And the greatest threat to U.S. global strategy became the non-aligned movement that its leaders, 5 leaders, created in Belgrade, Yugoslavia in 1961. Each of these leaders was the first president of his country. Sukarno in Indonesia, Tito in Yugoslavia, Nasser in Egypt, and Nkrumah in Ghana, and Nehru in India. And the non-aligned meant trying to create a structure of world diplomacy and trade and finance that was independent of U.S. control. Well, obviously, the United States fought this. It wasn't jealous of these countries. It wasn't a fit of jealousy that made it want to overthrow it. It wanted to control them. And if it couldn't control them, to destroy them. So that's why the United States sought to isolate and overthrow their leaders. And the most distressing leader to American strategists was Sukarno in Indonesia. He'd led the resistance to the Dutch Empire in 1945, and in the mid-1950s, he'd negotiated with China and also became the largest recipient of Russian foreign aid alongside Cuba. And Indonesia had a very large Chinese population that played a major role in its financial and commercial economy, as it does throughout much of Asia. So the United States organized a bloody coup. It killed up to over 500,000 Chinese. It was a racist coup. It said all Chinese, potentially communist, they all have to be killed. And literally, I'm told by the witnesses, the rivers were red with blood. There was a mass ethnic genocide, and all of the American hatred that had been towards China since the 19th century was expressed in this, and America installed a vicious military dictatorship under General Suharto, very much as it had done in Guatemala and in Iran under Iran. And as it did in Chile, when America wanted to overthrow the sort of wimpy socialist president there. Henry Kissinger quipped, "I don't see why we need to stand by and watch a country go communist due to the irresponsibility of the people. The issue is much too important for the Chilean voters to be left to decide for themselves." Well, that's what America means. America created democracy there by not letting the Chileans decide for themselves, but by putting in General Pinochet and start to install free market principles and organize Operation Condor to assassinate about a reported 60,000 labor leaders, progressive academics, land reformers, and liberation theology Christians throughout Latin America. There was a huge decade-long assassination program from Chile to Argentina to Brazil to Paraguay, all over Latin America. And all of that was to prevent other countries from going communist. And the upshot was a legacy that such as followed Hillary Clinton overthrew Honduras's president Manuel Zelaya in 2009 when he sought to do something like what Guatemala had tried to do earlier. He tried to promote a modest land reform, and Clinton said any attempt at land reform is communism, it's socialism. Essentially, the American is describing prosperity for any other country as communist and socialist. Well, what better slogan can you have for communism or socialism than what America accused it of being? And of course, the great victory, everything changed pretty much. The character of the Cold War changed in 1991 when it was capped by convincing the USSR to follow neoliberal principles that the World Bank and IMF planners explained to it in a meeting in 1990 in Houston, Texas. They explained to Russian leaders how they could have shock therapy, it would wipe out the population, it would leave Russia with no money at all, and then you give this population that's had its savings wiped out by hyperinflation, you give it vouchers and companies, it'll all be sold to a few oligarchs, and then they can buy the companies give the companies to themselves, and the former managers of the companies in Russia can, and its satellites, the Baltics, can simply register the companies in their own name, and then they can sell it, part of their holdings, to Americans and Europeans to cash out and get their money abroad. And the looting of Russia was so great that Russia became the world's leading stock market in 1994, 95, 96. And it became a free-for-all of saying, well, the Russians aren't going to get a penny from their wealth. We're going to get it all from the Americans will buy out Russian oil companies, Russian minerals, nickel, Norilsk nickel, the public utilities, and essentially we can get money by, without conquering them militarily, we'll conquer them intellectually. We will convince them that this is the way to get rich. And of course, it was the way to get rich for kleptocrats. It was a way for the 1% or the 0.1% in Russia, the 7 bankers, they were called, to become billionaires and create a mass of billionaires. And the Americans said, well, that's getting rich. And you're getting rich because you're selling your stocks to the Americans for US dollars, and you're using these dollars and sterling to buy big real estate in London, real estate in the United States. You're getting rich by moving your money out of Russia, leaving it sort of an empty shell. So for the American investors, the ruin of Russia was a financial success story. And it was followed by dismantling the industry and the self-reliance of the former Soviet republics. And as President George W. Bush, the younger Bush, declared in his State of the Union message in 2002, he set the stage for the invasion of Iraq in that speech. He said, quote, "By the grace of God, America won the Cold War. A world once divided into 2 armed camps now recognizes one side and as preeminent power, the United States of America."
所以他进一步呢，为了实现这种控制，那美国在冷战时期的地缘政治操作，包括暗杀，包括政变啊，包括反对发展中国家的土地改革，那就是追求公平正义的这些改革，他都是反对的。同时也反对这个发展中国家试图摆脱帝国主义控制，尤其是摆脱冷战的2大帝国控制这样的不结盟运动。他其中也有特别讲到了这个当年这个策动政变，让印度尼西亚的这个苏哈托这个军人上台，杀死了50多万华人。他也谈到了旧冷战的胜利之后， 苏联如何被瓦解，如何被掠夺，这个各种各样的历史教训，对于我们来说都是值得汲取的。